Imagine leading so that no matter what crosses your path, whether it's a tough meeting, an unexpected change, or maybe some critical feedback, you feel calm, confident, and grounded. You know who you are, you know how to respond, and you don't get pulled off course by pressure and self-doubt and fear. I've spent over 30 years in the corporate world, and now as an author and a keynote speaker, and the most powerful leaders I've seen weren't the loudest or the most qualified. They were the ones with the deepest presence. And that's what I want for you. That's possible when you build inner fitness. And inner fitness begins with a mindset, but it goes deeper than mindset alone. It starts with identity. Because real confidence is not a skills problem, it's an identity issue. Most women are taught that confidence comes from being more prepared, more qualified, and more perfect. But if confidence alone comes from skills, then it disappears the moment you're stretched or challenged or criticized. And that's why so many women, capable women, feel confident in preparation and uncertain under pressure. True confidence comes from identity, from knowing who you are and what you stand for, and the value you bring before you walk in the room. Inner fitness is like training your leadership muscles. You don't wait until you're in crisis. You start before you need it. Inner fitness is the practice of strengthening your inner world, your mindset, your emotional regulation, and your sense of self, so that no matter what's happening around you, you can lead from a place of strength. And this is exactly what my Growth EQ leadership model is designed to do, to help you grow stronger on the inside so that you can lead with greater impact on the outside. And after more than 30 years in the corporate world, and now as a keynote speaker working with women leaders, I've seen one thing again and again. The leaders who create the greatest impact aren't the ones with the longest resumes or the most technical expertise. They're the ones who can turn so-called soft skills like listening and empathy and emotional intelligence into hard results that drive performance and engagement and influence. Actually, I really hate the term soft skills. They are not soft. It takes tremendous courage to lead from a place of inner strength and vulnerability. In fact, research shows that leaders with high emotional intelligence contribute up to 90% of the difference between the average and the top performers. Think about that for a moment. 90% of the difference. That means what sets great leaders apart isn't what's on their resume. It's how they show up. Teams with empathic leaders report higher engagement, better collaboration, and lower turnover. And in a recent LinkedIn study, these so-called soft skills were rated as the #1 predictor of leadership success. And yet, despite this, many women leaders still feel the pressure to prove their worth through long hours, overwork, or technical knowledge, instead of identity strength. And this is what we need to understand, especially in the age of AI. Skills can be automated, but identity cannot. The future belongs to the leaders whose confidence is anchored in who they are, not just what they can do. And I've learned this the hard way. For years, I thought results meant working harder, being the most prepared, and trying to prove that I was as good or better than anyone else in the room. I was a bit of the overachiever. But the more I pushed, the more invisible I felt. My voice got smaller. and my impact felt even weaker. And one day, sitting in yet another meeting, I realized something. I wasn't being overlooked because I lacked skill. I was being overlooked because I wasn't leading from my center. My identity wasn't anchored. It was conditional. It was conditional on what was happening around me. I was too busy listening to the voice in my head that kept telling me that I wasn't ready, that I shouldn't speak up because, I could be wrong or it might not be the perfect answer. I had achieved so much, and yet the voice in my head kept telling me that I was just lucky, that I really didn't belong. Have you had those thoughts? No matter how capable you are, if that story is running underneath the surface, it just erodes your presence and your confidence, and especially under pressure, because pressure always exposes the identity gaps. And the hardest part of all of this is that we don't even realize it's happening because the story feels so familiar, even if it isn't true. These thoughts don't come from nowhere. They come from our lived experiences, from the pressure to prove ourselves, from cultures that reward charisma over competence, from years of being underestimated or overlooked. And the problem isn't that the story plays in your head. The problem is that we start to believe that it's true. You've probably heard the term impostor syndrome, right? But here's the thing, it's not actually a syndrome. The word syndrome implies there's something medically or psychologically wrong with you, that you're broken, that this is a mental illness. But that's not what this is. This is a human response to unrealistic expectations, to perfectionism, to toxic work cultures, and systemic bias, especially for women. Many of us were raised with messages like, you have to succeed to be valued. Don't mess up. Be good, be nice, be perfect. Those are just early stories from your childhood, from well-meaning teachers and parents who honestly wanted the best for you. And these stories turn into lifelong pressure to prove your worth. So let's stop thinking of this as a syndrome of illness and realize that it's actually very normal. You're not broken. You're just caught up in an old story. And this is why I call it the imposter story. And you have the power to rewrite it. And only you have the power to rewrite it. And how do you know if you're stuck in this imposter story? Well, let me share with you a few signs. You might over-prepare and still feel underqualified. Or you downplay your achievements and say, it was nothing. Or possibly you hesitate to speak up even when you know the answer. And you might secretly fear that you feel that you're going to be found out. Or you constantly seek reassurance and external validation. If any of this sounds familiar, you are so not alone. Because the truth is, many high-achieving women are walking around with this damn highlight reel on the inside, and this shame story. And that's the imposter story. So here's the question I really want to ask you today. And I want you to take a moment to just let it land. Who would you be without that story? Without that voice in your head that says you're not enough, that tells you to shrink. Without that fear that success is just being lucky. Would you speak up more freely? Would you lead more boldly? Would you finally apply for the thing that scares you? Because deep down, you know you are ready. And that's the version of you I would love to meet. And she's already there, beneath the story. So I've developed the imposter story self-assessment. So this self-assessment isn't here to label you, and it's actually here to help you recognize the pattern without the shame. You know, once something is seen clearly, it loses its power. So I invite you to click on the link to complete the assessment. And please remember that the score is not a label and it's not your limit. It simply highlights the patterns that are currently shaping your leadership from the inside. And the imposter story loses its power the moment it becomes visible. And this is where inner fitness comes in. Because this is what most people don't tell you. When you're feeling like an imposter, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're growing, that you're stepping into a bigger space, a bolder version of you. And your stretch experience just hasn't caught up with that inner knowing yet. You may feel some inner tension. This usually happens in every growth phase. You know, it's a space between the old version of you that knew how to stay safe and the emerging version of you that's learning how to stand in your full power. And that's why inner fitness matters. Because inner fitness is the practice of strengthening your inner world so that when those old stories surface, they don't run the show. And when your imposter story starts playing in your head, here are 3 things that you can try. So first of all, it's important to spot it. You know, it's the awareness. There's that imposter story again. You know, bringing that awareness forward. Secondly, challenge it with curiosity, but not judgment. Is this actually true, or is this just an old conditioning? And thirdly, replace it. I've earned my place and I bring value. I don't need to prove myself. I need to show up. So let me ask you again. What's the imposter story you've been telling yourself? And more importantly, would you be without it? If you're ready to stop outsourcing your worth and start leading from within, you're in the right place. And if you're ready to build the kind of leadership that doesn't depend on permission or how much you produce or external validation, but comes from a deep, unshakable connection to yourself, then I invite you to book a clarity call session with me. And you know, let's build your next leadership chapter from the inside out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.